It has been months since it ended, maybe longer, and you are fine most days. You have moved on, mostly. And then, out of nowhere, at a red light, or in the shower, or right before you fall asleep, you miss them. Not the version of them who hurt you, the version from the good nights, the ones that felt like winning something. You do not miss the person who was kind and steady and easy to be with afterward. You miss the one who kept you guessing, and some quiet, confused part of you wonders what that says about you, that the person who was worst for you is the one your chest still aches for. You have probably been told this means you have low self-worth, or that you are addicted to chaos, or that some part of you simply prefers being treated badly. Those explanations feel like an insult stacked on top of an injury, and none of them actually explain the specific texture of what you are feeling. If you truly preferred being treated badly, you would miss the bad moments too. The fights, the silence, the waiting by the phone. But you do not. You miss a very narrow, specific slice of the relationship. The relief right after the tension, the affection that arrived unpredictably, the moments that felt earned. That specificity is the clue. Your brain is not confused about what love is. It is responding to something much older and more mechanical than love, and almost nobody explains what that mechanism actually is. Here is something you can use right now, before we even get into why this happens. The next time the missing hits you, do not ask, "Do I miss them?" Ask a more precise question instead. Am I missing the person, or am I missing the specific feeling of relief after uncertainty? Say the answer out loud if it helps. Most of the time, when people sit with that question honestly, they realize they are not longing for a person at all. They are longing for a very particular chemical sensation that person's unpredictability used to produce, and that sensation can be named and understood without needing that person back in your life to get it. That will help you today. It will not explain why your brain latched onto an unpredictable person harder than it ever would have latched onto a steady one, and that is where this gets interesting. Your brain does not release its strongest reward chemicals when good things happen reliably. It releases its strongest reward chemicals when good things happen unpredictably. This is one of the oldest and most heavily documented patterns in behavioral psychology, first mapped out through research on how reward schedules shape behavior. A behavior that gets rewarded every single time gets learned, but a behavior that gets rewarded only sometimes, unpredictably, gets learned far more intensely and becomes far harder to let go of. This is exactly the mechanism behind slot machines. A machine that paid out every time you pulled the lever would get boring fast. A machine that pays out rarely and unpredictably is the one people cannot walk away from, because the brain keeps calculating that the next pull might be the one that finally pays off. A person who was warm and consistent teaches your brain something simple and stable. Affection is reliable here. I do not need to work for it. I can relax. A person who was warm sometimes and cold or distant other times teaches your brain something far more addictive. Affection here is a jackpot, unpredictable, and worth chasing every single time, because you never know which attempt will be the one that finally pays out. Your nervous system does not register the second pattern as worse. It registers it as more urgent, more attention-worthy, more deeply worth remembering, because unpredictable reward is exactly the pattern your brain is built to fixate on above almost everything else. This matters right now because it means the intensity of what you are feeling was never proof that this person was special or that the relationship was somehow more real than a stable one would have been. It is proof that your brain was running the exact same reward circuitry a gambler's brain runs at a slot machine, and that circuitry does not care whether what it is chasing is actually good for you. It only cares that the reward was unpredictable, and unpredictable rewards leave the deepest grooves. So, if this is not love in the way you assumed, what is actually happening when you miss them? This is the part that reframes almost everything about how this kind of longing actually works. You are not missing a person. You are missing a slot machine you can no longer play. The good moments you remember so vividly were not evidence of deep compatibility. They were the jackpot moments, made to feel enormous, specifically because they were rare and unearned, and came right after a stretch of not knowing whether they would come at all. Your brain filed those moments under extremely important, remember this forever, not because the relationship was extraordinary, but because that is exactly how your brain treats every unpredictable reward, regardless of the source. Slot machines do this. Certain people do this. Your brain cannot tell the difference between the two once the reward has been random long enough. Think about a stable relationship you have witnessed from the outside, one where both people were simply kind to each other consistently, without drama, without the highs and lows. From the outside, those relationships often look almost boring compared to the ones defined by breakups and reunions. That is not an accident. Consistency does not create the same neurological intensity that unpredictability does, even though consistency is what actually makes a relationship safe and sustainable. Your brain was never designed to reward you most for what is good for you. It was designed to reward you most for what is uncertain, and those two things are not the same, even though it feels like they should be. So here is the second thing you can actually use, and it works, because it targets the real mechanism instead of the story you have been telling yourself about it. When the missing hits, try naming the specific moment you are actually remembering, in detail. Not, I miss them. Instead, I miss the way they came back after 3 days of silence and suddenly gave me all their attention. Once you name it that specifically, notice what it actually is. It is not a description of love. It is a description of intermittent reinforcement, the exact same pattern that keeps people pulling a lever they know is rigged against them. Naming the mechanism does not erase the feeling instantly, but it stops your brain from mistaking the craving for a signal that this person was uniquely right for you. Here is the part that changes almost everything else you thought you understood about this kind of longing, and it usually lands well past where most explanations already stop. You have probably assumed, this whole time, that the fact you cannot stop thinking about someone is proof of how deep your feelings for them must have been. But intensity of craving and depth of genuine connection are not the same measurement, even though they feel identical from the inside. A slot machine can produce an intensity of craving that far outweighs its actual value to you. The same is true of a person whose affection arrived unpredictably. The craving you feel is real. It is simply not measuring what you think it is measuring. It is measuring how rigged the reward schedule was, not how right the person was for you. That reframe changes what healing from this actually requires. You are not trying to convince yourself the person was worthless, which usually backfires, because your memory keeps surfacing the jackpot moments as evidence against that story. You are trying to teach your nervous system a new, more accurate story about what those jackpot moments actually were, not proof of a rare, deep connection, but proof of a reward schedule your brain was never equipped to resist without understanding it first. The craving fades not when you convince yourself they were bad, but when your brain finally files the relationship under unpredictable reward pattern instead of under once-in-a-lifetime connection I lost. This also explains why a genuinely kind, steady person who comes into your life afterward can sometimes feel oddly underwhelming at first, even though they are exactly what you say you want. Your reward system, still calibrated to the intensity of unpredictable payouts, briefly reads consistency as boredom, simply because consistency does not spike the same circuitry that the old unpredictable pattern once did. That reaction is not a sign the new person is wrong for you. It is a sign your nervous system is still recalibrating away from a reward schedule it spent a long time adapted to. And that recalibration takes time, the same way eyes take a moment to adjust after leaving a dark room. Which brings us to the actual shift, the one that makes all of this usable instead of just a sad thing to understand. Stop treating the intensity of the craving as proof of how special the connection was. Start naming the specific, narrow moments you are actually missing, and notice how closely they match the pattern of an unpredictable reward rather than a stable one. Give steady, consistent affection from other people in your life time to recalibrate a nervous system that got used to chasing a jackpot, instead of dismissing that steadiness as boring, simply because it does not spike the way the old unpredictability did. And let the craving be real, without letting it dictate the story of what the relationship actually was. It is some other night, some other red light, and the missing arrives again, quieter this time, but you know now what it actually is. Not proof that they were the one, not proof that you have bad taste or love chaos, just a very old, very mechanical part of your brain, still quietly pulling a lever it has not fully accepted is broken, waiting for one more payout that was never really about them at all.